Thank you. Welcome everybody to our fifth event in this Outcomes Estimation Tools Training webinar series. I'm Michelle Perez with American Farmland Trust, and we are so excited to feature the Fieldprint Platform by Field to Market. We have a very short intro session here with a welcome and a very short poll, and we hope to take just 5 minutes of your time before we turn it over to Eric Coronel of the Field to Market, who will give us a presentation on the tool for about 30 minutes or so, and then a demonstration of the tool. And we'll make sure we have Q&A in the last 15 minutes. We want to thank our funders, EPA Office of Water, the Walton Family Foundation, and the Mosaic Foundation for making this possible. I'm going to turn this over to Aysha now.
All right, well, thanks, Michelle. I'm just going to do a couple housekeeping things. We are using the Zoom webinar platform for this series. So that means as attendees, you will have your camera and microphones turned off throughout this event. You can use the Q&A feature at the bottom of the screen at any time to ask questions, and the speakers will answer the questions during the last 15 minutes of the event. You can use your name or be anonymous when asking questions or making comments. You can also vote up questions you want prioritized. If you're having any technical difficulties, you can direct message me and I'll try to help you out. And then following each webinar, you'll receive an email within 3 to 4 days that will provide the recording and the slides for the presentations, as well as information about the next month's speaker. And by the following Monday, we will post the recordings to the webinar registration page, which we absolutely welcome you to share with colleagues and friends that may be interested in viewing. In a moment, I'll be sharing a link to a 6-question anonymous evaluation survey that should take about 2 minutes to complete. We use these surveys to help guide our next month's presenter and any needed changes to the webinar series. The survey will pop up when you leave, but you can also click on that now, so it will open a new tab in your browser. We ask that you please complete the survey right after the event ends.
Great. Now it's time for 3 polls. You know, we do these because we like to know who's in the room, right? So first question, which one sector best reflects your occupation? Are you with a government agency? Are you a nonprofit? There's some, examples of who we think about when we have these keywords. Are you with an academic institution, a corporation or environmental markets developer, or other? Second question, if there are only 4 types of audience members, which one best describes you? Are you a developer of outcomes estimation tools, methods, or model? Are you a current user of said items, a potential future user, or a person interested in learning about outcomes estimation tools and issues? And third and final, what is your experience level with this Fieldprint platform that we're going to hear about today? Had not heard of it, had heard of it, but never used it, heard of it and used it, I refer to it often. So thank you so much for letting us know who's in the room and answering this quick poll.
Would you like me to end it now, or give it a few more minutes?
Sure, whatever you think. Do we have a good
let's give it a couple more seconds. Okay. We're up to 82%.
Yay. Thank you, everybody. I like polls.
All right, so I'll go ahead and end the poll now.
There we go. All right, so at the top, looks like most folks in the room, about 61%, are government agency representatives, USDA, EPA, state, or soil water conservation districts, or others, maybe 319 project leaders as well. NGOs next with 26%, farm trade associations, environmental groups, and a small showing from the academic group and the corporate and other. 4 types, persons mainly interested in learning about outcomes estimation tools, 42%, followed by potential user, current user, and developer. I think that's pretty, as one would expect in the general population. And most of you have not heard of the Fieldprint platform, so this is going to be exciting introduction to it. Never used it, refer to it option. 2 of you Excellent, good to know. You can ask a lot of hard questions to Eric. All right, well, let's see what's next. I think we have just one last slide. So this is a screenshot of the webinar registration schedule page. And we wanted to make sure you all knew about this, and Aysha is going to, put the link to this in the chat. We've had 4 events so far. The green suggests that you can click on that and listen to the recording. And Aysha is also sharing the next set of links where you can actually look at the slides. So if you don't want to spend time looking at the slides, but you like to listening to the recording, watching the recording, you like to thumb through the slides quickly, we have that resource as well. And if any of the tool developers wanted to share additional things, we provide those as links or as PDFs on the next website. It's called our Farmland Information Center Outcomes Estimation Tools webinar series site. So we're looking forward to everyone joining on October 4, where our EPA representative, Adrian Donahue, is going to show us the pollution load estimation tool, which is a water quality oriented tool. So without further ado, we welcome Eric Coronel. Thank you. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and turn it over to Eric.
Thank you, Michelle. Let me take a moment to share the right screen. Just a second.
No problem.
Okay, please let me know if you can see my screen at the moment.
Looks great.
Perfect. Welcome, everybody. Very excited to be here, especially seeing the survey. It's very helpful to see the number of participants that have never heard of Field to Market and the Fieldprint Platform, so this would be a great opportunity. My name is Eric Coronel. I've been Director of Science Research at Field to Market since April or so, but I was at Field to Market before, from 2018 to 2021. We probably interacted with many of you in the committees or other meetings along the way. My passion is trying to apply agricultural models, data practices, whatever may needed applied at the field level. So that's who we're trying to reach. We want to be able to provide models, useful tools, project tracking, a lot of metrics available at the farmer's fingertips. So that's my passion. That's what I like to work on. And Field to Market has a very wide membership, and that allows us to bring this framework to everybody. Other positions that I've held, I work as a research agronomist at a John Deere Technology Center in Champaign. And I was also Director of Sustainability at the American Peanut Council, starting the first sustainability initiative for the industry. So some of the topics we're going to cover today, how to complete the questionnaire, the data inputs, how to interpret the sustainability metrics, the quantitative ones especially. We're going to mention quickly the qualitative metrics that we have, but the focus will be on the quantitative metrics. We want to describe a little bit of the framework that it's included in the tool, so it allows you to have projects to engage the supply chain from the grower all the way to the retailer. And we want to show a few of the project management features that you may be interested in based on whatever metric you are working on. So the agenda will go over Field to Market. We'll go over a snapshot of the program, the strengths and limitations, and then we'll go through all of the other steps to show you a glimpse of the tool, what it does, what it doesn't, and how can you use it as soon as you're ready. For the snapshot, this was shared by all other tool developers as well. So the scale and specificity, we work at the field level. You can, of course, aggregate across watersheds or whatever may be available, but growers start with primary data at the field level. If management across fields is pretty similar, then there are ways that you can copy that management to speed up the data collection. But we work very specifically at the field level for the weather, the soil types and properties. For the region, we care about the energy grid that you're using, and all of that data is collected automatically in the background. So anyway, lots of specificity for the field location. The 5 quantitative metrics that we cover are energy use, greenhouse gas emissions, irrigation water use, land use, and soil conservation. When we mention soil conservation, it means wind and water erosion per acre per year. Conservation practices that we take into account is basically all of them. The major ones: tillage, cover crops, the crop rotations, irrigation, biodiversity practices, over 30 conservation practice standards or NRCS. But please keep in mind that selecting these conservation practice standards do not affect all the metrics. It may affect a few: water quality or energy use or greenhouse gas emissions. But some metrics, there some conservation practices, there is not enough data to make it influence all the metrics. We cover cropland and grazing for alfalfa. We have 12 commodity crops. We'll be discussing those a little bit later. We work on the continental US just because many of the models that we have only work in the mainland. In general, it doesn't require any experience. You can complete, all the first-time users that we have help, for growers, from trainers. Everybody can complete the analysis within a reasonable amount of time. Of course, the first time it takes the longest, but over time, people get better. You can copy inputs across fields or management to speed up the process. So we provide tools to make it as fast as possible. We also are connected with several technology companies that may already collect 30, 60, 80% of the data needed. So anyway, we'll be discussing those as well. The platform run in 2022, we had over 500,000 fields analyzed for about 6,000 growers. We have projects all over the place, data flows from different companies. But in general, these are the most conservative numbers that we have for 2022. Over 500,000 fields analyzed and quite a bit of grower participation. In terms of strengths and limitations, we can quantify as a strength 5 quantitative outcomes: or energy use, greenhouse gas emissions, irrigation water use, land use, and soil conservation. Growers can usually answer all the questions in our data entry module, usually from memory. They may have a question about, okay, apply 40 pounds of potash this season or 45. So sometimes you have little details, but overall, the primary data can be answered just from memory, just because it's such basic, important information. The metrics have been developed in consensus through the 5 sectors that are members of Field to Market over a decade. So we think that the process is well vetted. The metrics are full transparency. There are some metrics that have been published over the years. So anyway, we're very confident in our transparency model that you can feel confident that the ins and outs of each metric. The quantifications start at the field level, but you can build projects as big as you want, and you can aggregate for projects. You can aggregate outcomes by whatever subset of data you care about, either the entire project, or if you care about a county, state, region, whatever it may be, you're able to aggregate as needed. We have built equivalencies over the years with organizations such as SAI, the Sustainable Agriculture Initiative. We recently announced a gold equivalency. If you care about that type of things, it works very well. We have also equivalencies with the Sustainability Consortium, and in the near future, we're going to have equivalency or reporting capabilities with, for example, Project Gigaton, stuff like that. So we try to be connected with organizations as much as we can to be able to improve data sharing and make it easier. So the data doesn't just stay in our ecosystem. You can use it for many other tools out there. We have 9 data partners that have incorporated all of our metrics into the systems. Sometimes they're crop specific, sometimes it's just a few crops depending on the region, but we'll cover that later. Some limitations that we have, we would say that 3 of our metrics are qualitative, so it's hard to get a quantitative outcome out of these 3 metrics without asking an enormous amount of data from growers. So for now, biodiversity, soil carbon, and water quality are indices, and we try to provide a measure that is directional, but we don't provide an actual, let's say for water quality, we don't provide pounds of nutrient loss per acre, something like that. We don't do that at the moment. Another limitation is that all 8 metrics need to be calculated at the same time. So that means that you cannot say, okay, you cannot just choose 1 metric or 2 metrics that you want to run and just collect data for those only metrics. We collect data up front. We don't have a module that you can separate the questions. And in general, it doesn't save a lot of time. For example, if you were to drop the biodiversity metric, it would only save you a few questions. So it's not big savings, but we want to bring that up front. All 8 metrics, all data entry happens the same for each crop. The first time entering data could take, half an hour or so, but over time, people get very, very good really quickly. And you can also copy management across fields. So let's say if a grower has 20 fields of corn, then if the management is pretty similar, then he can copy, the farmer can copy all the management across the fields, and then a grower may have to change the yield or some nitrogen values, but overall it's very fast to use that tool. For some big projects, we do ask organizations to join Field to Market, and I'll be mentioning a single slide about that a little bit later. Especially to access all the project management features, you may have to join Field to Market. We also have rules about public communications. We fight really hard to help companies not make any type of greenwashing statements using our tool. We don't want to devalue our platform that way. So we really care about what people say about how they're using the metrics and the outputs. We don't want to organizations to get into trouble by saying things that it may not be necessarily true. And for example, I'll give a quick example. Sometimes we have companies that want to join Field to Market, and they say, okay, if I join Field to Market, can I say that my commodity is sustainable? And right, it doesn't work that way. You need to engage your growers. You need to collect data. You need to have a plan for project implementation. So it's just not joining the organization and saying that your crop is it's sustainable or regenerative or whatever it may be. Another limitation that may affect some of you is that the platform only works in the continental US. Moving forward, just a few minutes about who we are at Field to Market. So we got started around 2006 as an offshoot from Keystone Policy Center. Back in the mid-2000s, there were a lot of questions, a lot of concerns that some big companies were going to just commit to buying crops under the USDA organic program, for example. And organizations wanted to show that we can also have a rigorous data requirement collection for conventional grown crops as well, and demonstrate improvement and progress in sustainability metrics. Field to Market started publishing reports. They released the Fieldprint platform as an Excel spreadsheet, and over time, we launched as a nonprofit. We grew to about 10 staff members over the years. Has been pretty steady over time. And we believe that we can engage the supply chain from growers all the way to the retailers to connect them. It's a lot of work needed. Sometimes the supply chain is very disconnected, right? The grower just knows the immediate person that is buying the crop, and then the next person sells to the manufacturer, and then it's very disjointed. So over time, we have made progress trying to connect all those sectors of the supply chain. For our guiding principles, we care that our metrics must be transparent. They must be focused on outcomes. They need to be based on science and published literature. and it has to be open to the range of technology choices, which means we're not promoting one practice or crop growing practice over another. Whatever works for that grower, and if it can be measured, it's part of the system. And the idea is that we can have growers engaging us in continuous improvement, right? Getting a baseline, starting to get used to this type of tools that measure metrics at the field level or at the farm level, and try to find improvement ways over time. For many of you that care about it, so we have, just because we have heard so much from our members about it, we have a definition of sustainable agriculture, and we have a definition of what we consider regenerative agriculture, and we have a framework of about how to measure these things. There is a lot of confusion. We keep doing literature reviews, we keep collecting papers to try to see what members, organizations, growers are saying about what regenerative agriculture is. So we have some principles about it. Several of our metrics support following regenerative agricultural principles, the same as sustainable. So this may matter for some of you. We try to provide some clarity. Of course, it's, many of these things, definitions, there isn't an agreed upon consensus about some sectors, but we try to provide some guidance about how you can discuss these topics in terms of our framework. This slide makes me a little bit dizzy, but we wanted to give a snapshot of many of the organizations that have joined Field to Market over the years. We have a lot of commodity groups, we have growers, we have universities, we have retailers, companies that buy and sell product as well. There's a lot of engagement. So the engagement is group specific or commodity specific, but there is space for everybody. And we hope that over time, you may be interested in joining the Alliance and be able to learn more about it. In terms of the membership, we have 5 sectors. So we have growers, we have civil societies, which usually includes NGOs. We have the affiliate sector, and many of all organizations that are state or federal government qualify under the affiliate membership. It has no cost. We just have an agreement for in-kind contributions, for example. But for the most part, unless you are an agribusiness or brand retailers, the membership is super affordable. And as I said, the affiliate sector has no cost associated with membership. And joining allows you to have all the project management features and have unlimited projects, basically. So it's a benefit of being part of the ecosystem. Moving into the actual about the tool and the metrics. The Fieldprint platform started around 2009 as a web-based tool. Before that, it was an Excel spreadsheet, but the complexity has grown so much that we have a web interface, that we have APIs in the background. But yeah, we hope to serve farmers all the way to the stakeholders that care about the supply chain sustainability, to be able to track emissions, to be able to track improvement in certain metrics that they care about. We provide a framework for data collection, for metric outputs, and we provide simplified reports and comprehensive reports and whatever you may need for your project. So in general, it's very easy to use, but the technology, the algorithms, the metrics behind it, the data connections to many organizations has grown in complexity. It's not slowing down, but we try to provide a balance just between all tier 3 models, for example, versus something that can be easily done in a few minutes. So we have a mix of both. In terms of how we support
Eric,
users and project administrators.
Eric, forgive me, it's Michelle. Yeah. I just wanted to let you know that your sound is beginning to be a little bit glitchy. So how about try turning off your video, and let's see if that improves. Thank you so much.
Yes, let me know if that's any better.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. In terms of how we support users in the platform, so we have public documentation of all the metrics. We have technical support website with videos, video tutorials, and step-by-step guides. We have fact sheets that help describe each metric and how to improve the scores. The fact sheets are mostly tailored towards trainers, and also producers. So crop advisors have benefited from those fact sheets over the years. We also have brochures with all the data input requirements and how they feed all the inputs, how they feed into the actual metrics. We have learning modules for crop advisors, and we also have a web-based data analysis tool to help with data analysis for the project level. We do host academies once a year and data analyst trainings once a year, and these are two separate events. The registration is free for members, and it helps you understand the framework for field to market and also how to analyze the data in an efficient way. Demonstration data from 3 growers that volunteer the information, so you can see how the data translates to real world scenarios. And of course, we provide support from the staff to all members of Field to Market. These are the 11 crops that we have in the system. So we see a lot of engagement, of course, with the big crops, corn, soybean, wheat, rice. There are several programs that use the cotton and peanuts, data collection frameworks, and over the years, we have seen, some engagement for barley and other commodities. But of course, you always have some engagement from some crops and not others. But we try to support all these crops. We don't have specialty crops or orchard crops, but this meets the needs of a lot of our stakeholders. The 8 metrics that we have, you can see them here. The ones that are quantitative and you can get outcomes out of it is energy use, greenhouse gas emissions, irrigated water use, land use, and soil conservation. The other 3 are indices. So a quick explanation. So for example, for energy use, the output is BTUs per yield units, or BTUs per bushel, for example, and the same for greenhouse gas emissions. We consider the on-farm energy use, the on-farm emissions, and also we take into account our systems boundary takes into account upstream emissions and energy use for the manufacturing of agriculture inputs like fertilizers and pesticides. So it's pretty complete, and it follows several standard system boundaries for this type of footprint analysis. Irrigation water use takes into account the water used to increase yield based on what non-irrigated yield is. Land use takes into account the yield. It's basically the inverse relationship of yield. And soil conservation uses NRCS models to get water and wind erosion, and we report an aggregate tons of soil loss per acre per year based on the crop rotation submitted. This is how the data flows. We have basically an engine in the background. We have all the crops. Data starts at the crop year, so a mix of field and crop for a single year. Growers can build farms, whatever unit they prefer. We collect data on the agronomics and the operations and the crop rotation, and then we use a lot of geospatial data to be able to calculate the metrics. The data flows to NRCS models through Colorado State University's servers. So we calculate wind erosion, water erosion, the soil conditioning index. STEP is the index for water quality. And we also use the surrogate databases, of course, and then the CRL mod that is mentioned there is a framework for collecting crop rotation data. So the planting, the harvest, all the operations in between, and that matters a lot for tillage. These are the 9 data partners that we currently have. Not all of these organizations run all crops. For example, the seam in the middle bottom runs cotton and peanuts. I think John Deere only runs cotton, and then most others run corn, soybeans, and wheat. So anyway, we have a mix. So if you have relationships with any of these companies, you can discuss what crops they support for our sustainability metrics. And the basic idea, Michelle, I'm going to turn my video on, see if it works well again.
Okay.
So the basic idea is that we can take all these metrics and apply them at the field level to create projects, to bring continuous improvement, and to bring a measure of transparency to the supply chain. And the way we have done that is by what we call translating the science of the metrics into action at the field level. We have an accelerator environment or framework that we allow organizations to join to be able to provide a pre-competitive framework to measure sustainability from the field level all the way to the end of the supply chain. These are all the projects that we had during the 2022 year. So we register, or we kept, either new projects or projects that keep going. We have about 60 projects that have reported about nearly 5.5 million acres in terms of the fields and the farms that the growers submit for primary data. Usually an organization wouldn't run this alone. We have even seen competitors working together to implement these projects. For example, you may have competitors, and one of the organizations care about the corn year of the rotation, the other organization cares about the soybean year of the rotation. So even though they may have conflicts elsewhere, they can collaborate in projects to make it more affordable for both organizations and benefit the growers in terms of consistency. We have 3 project types. So based on the complexity, how much you engage your growers, what do you want to do with the information? We have 3 project types. So we call it incubation, insight, and innovation. The complexity goes left to right. So at least we provide a way for projects to get started, do the most basic type of engagement with the growers, and try to grow and improve over time. You may care about this, others may not, but we do have what we call claims. And, the 3 types of claims in the left side, so project participation, adoption, and measurement claims, they're all 1-year based on the data collected in the framework for managing the information. You can submit these claims to try to get some recognition based out of the project, how is it running, and so forth. Trends claim and impacts claim are more involved. It takes several years of data collection, and sometimes many projects are just for 2 years, and they may not qualify for those more intensive claims. But at least you can get project adoption and measurement claims that are usually 1-year snapshots for all of those. Some of the benefits that we see for this type of framework in terms of not just providing data collection tool, but also providing an ecosystem framework that makes sense for you, that it goes all the way from one end of the supply chain to the next. So usually for projects to be successful, you need, of course, the growers. You need what we call implementation partners, and that could be universities or NGOs or grower organizations. We have seen a lot of financial companies involved lately, providing incentives or cost sharing or grants to growers. So that's something very exciting that is happening, that is fairly new in terms of actual banks or financial providers engaging in the field to market framework. And then you usually have project sponsors, organizations that have They may have the funds, but they don't have the staff at the field level to be able to support the project. So that's why we suggest having projects with multiple partners, so every organization can do what they do best, and that benefits the grower. Some of the benefits of doing projects, you can have a very clean outcome reporting in terms of the data outputs. You can have emission factors specific to your supply chain or a project. You can see how the metrics support regenerative goals, or how you can want to talk about regenerative goals. And it provides sometimes a framework for research. We have had many universities for corn, for cotton, for peanuts, some other crops. We have seen a lot of research involvement, and that has been very exciting because the professors usually have feedback for us, and sometimes they have published research based on our metrics. And for the grower, I would say the main benefit is having a peer network, being part of a project, feeling ownership of the project, and sometimes there is very significant technical assistance, and it's nice to see data from other growers to see how they compare sometimes. For a project, this is a little bit how the data flows. So you have participants, right? So you have the growers, you have the sponsors, you have the implementation partners, and then you choose a project type, incubation, insight, or innovation. The data gets created, there is analysis, there is comprehensive outputs with all the data that you need in terms of inputs and outputs. So anyway, it's very, very useful for ESG reports, for metric reporting, and many other users in the industry. I wanted to share a quick example. This is all public information, but for example, this is one of the projects happening with a dairy in the upper Midwest. So we have the Ag Stewardship Alliance is a project that they care about improving water quality and nutrient efficiency. So in terms of the partners at the bottom, if I go to the next slide, it will show how the implementation, how it works, right? So you have the growers, you have a technology partner, and you have education partners, and also they provide financial support for the whole project. So this is usually how it's done. We rarely see projects being run just by a single organization, just because it's hard to have the connection to the growers, it's hard to have the implementation expertise, and to be able, sometimes organizations need data analysis support, so you have a technology or data partner. So anyway, it's a great ecosystem to be able to collaborate, not in a vacuum, basically. We do provide also a framework to recognize all the great work being done by growers, by crop advisors, by project administrators, and as well we recognize every year we recognize what we call a collaboration of the year, where we have many organizations working together to try to bring benefit to the grower at the field level. It takes a while to do them. It takes a while to see progress sometimes, but the saying, if you want to move fast, go alone, but if you want to make actual result, make influence decisions, make actual progress, you gotta collaborate, you gotta have a peer network of implementation partners and everybody in between to be successful in your projects. At this time, I'm gonna start with the demonstrations, unless, I don't know, Michelle, if we do questions now or later.
I think go straight to the demonstration. Thank you.
Sounds good.
And if folks have questions, they can let them, go ahead and write them in the Q&A, and we'll take them during the demo.
Great. Let me know if you can see a website now.
Yes, that's right.
Okay. So this is so if you go to calculator.fieldtomarket.org, this is the main calculator. You can either log in or create an account, or in this case, you can see data as a free guest, basically. And when you use the guest account, you can see actual examples from 3 growers that have volunteered the information. I think we have wheat and corn and soybeans and sorghum and cotton demonstrated in the system. We also have a peanut farm from a professor doing research back in the day. So anyway, this is what it looks like. So from a grower view, a grower would see their farm, would see their field. We have what we call a crop rotation library where somebody can build rotations to be able to feed the data to the models. I'll go into that in a minute. But the basic idea is that you can start with a farm, and a grower may not need several farms. They can just have everything under a single farm. But sometimes there are divisions that they want to have. They may have a forage farm versus just row crops. So anyway, we'll go to, this is what it look like. So right now we are under a single field, and this field is in Wright County in Iowa. This is a over 160-acre field that was entered beforehand. And then you can see how you can add crops. For adding fields, it's pretty simple. So you will have a tour explaining all the data, how to enter fields quickly. You can zoom in all the way to the field level. And for some regions, we have support. So we have pre-created boundaries, right? So you can see some regions it works very well, not in others, but you can select a pre-created field based on machine learning and other things that have done organizations over the year. And then you can select the field that way, and you can either enter the data by hand for some of these properties. If not, you can let the service collect the data. So in this case, it collected the slope length, the surface, the soil texture, and the organic matter content of 4.5%, which is amazing. And then you put a field name. We don't need to save this field right now, so we'll go into what it looks like for data entry. So let's say we go to corn in 2018. So the module for data entry looks like this. It's very similar across crops. Of course, some crops have custom operations that we needed to account for. So we care about residue burning for the emissions that come out of burning that residue. If you were to answer yes, then you provide what crop was burned the year before, the yield, to get an idea of the biomass being burned. We ask about what type of rotation, is it a single crop rotation? Is it a crop rotation with several crops, or is it a crop to fallow type of approach? We ask about cover crops. If you answer no, then all the questions go away. But we do ask about if the cover crop survives the winter or dies, and then what's your most predominant tillage type? So is it reduced tillage? Is it no-till? Is it conventional? We also ask about crop rotation system, and usually we have a bunch of pre-created rotations. This data goes into the wind and water erosion, as well as the soil carbon index. And we also use it to account for energy use and emissions of the equipment. So for example, this is a very common rotation. It's just very simple. So this is, so here we have a winter wheat being planted in November, and then it grows over the winter. It gets harvested around June, and then we plant peanuts in June, which is actually super late for peanuts, and then we go to harvest of the peanuts. So rotations sometimes are really complex, but as many models, the data output that you get, the quality of the output is as good as the data entered. We provide a lot of support for crop rotation. So let's say for a project, you can actually have project-based rotation. So an organization can supply these crop rotations to make it easier for growers. So they have a bunch of rotations that they can choose from. We ask about management data, if it's irrigated or not, if you have wind barriers based on NRCS standards, the type of tile drainage that matters for water quality, biodiversity. Then we ask about, usually a lot of dairy farms have an official approved NRCS management plan to get an idea about the type of management that they have. Then we ask about the 4 Rs. We ask about lime application, fertilizer, nitrogen, and both phosphorus as well. We ask for any management techniques that you may be applying for nitrogen. The same for phosphorus, about soil tests and other techniques. We ask about pest management, and in this case, it's just simple drop-down menu. Not very comprehensive. We're looking to improve this over time, but for now, it's just a single question on IPM. We ask about land use. So, this is not happening in the continental US a lot, at least in the past few decades, but we ask about if you converted a forest or a savanna or natural pasture, if it got converted into cropland, because that matters for biodiversity. We ask if you provide foraging habitat or breeding and nested habitat, and then we allow to select all the conservation practices that matter for, in this case, for the water quality metric. But anyway, there are over 30 practices in here that you can choose from. And also this serves as a way to collect data and to record it by farm. After the management, we move to the last section of operations. And here is pretty simple. Every time you take the equipment to the field, it produces a record here. So it will be planting, and then you'll have a seeding rate, a seeding treatment, because that matters for the upstream emissions, and energy use, of course, harvest, where we ask about yield. We ask about any crop, and then we ask about the distance that, from the field to the grain elevator, for example, the type of drying for the crop, how many, because we calculate the energy use and emissions based on the dryings, right? So for example, let's say that somebody harvested corn 18% moisture, and then they need to dry it down to 13-12%. So we'll update it to like 4 or 5, 6% moisture is being removed, and we use that to calculate the energy use and emissions on the crop drying. The fertilizer and spraying is fairly complete. So we ask about the timing of the application, the incorporation. We ask about the product type. The very basic, you can just provide nitrogen, P2O5 and K2O rates. And then you can also indicate how many products were applied. So let's say during the single application, you also apply 2 herbicides, as a pre-emergent or something like that. But yeah, the idea is to capture all the NPK rates, the lime, and all the pesticide products. We don't ask, at this moment, we are not asking for active ingredient rates, right? So we're not saying, okay, how many pounds of glyphosate do you apply? We just ask for products applied, and then we use a calculation in the background based on USDA data to get an idea about the rates. We may have to start asking for more specific information here, but for now, this meets our needs. And you can also add manure application, and this is also pretty complete information. So you have the manure type, the amount, the timing, and the application method, if it was surface or immediately injected, and so on. And we also ask for the pounds of nitrogen and phosphorus contained in the manure. And we do have a table somewhere to provide help. If you don't know, then they're national or average rates based on the type. So that provides you a quick overview of the system, and then after that, you go to review the data and it gets submitted. We'll go to a one that already got calculated. This is for soybeans. So this is already calculated. This is the type of output that you get out of it. So we have a little bit of a mix of art and science, trying to show a diagram showing all the metrics in a radar chart. So the smaller the coverage of the polygon, the smaller the footprint compared to national and state benchmarks. You can turn on and off the state benchmarks, the national benchmarks, and these are created with USDA data. And it gives you an idea, but of course we provide the actual outputs out of the system. So for land use, you see the actual scores. So these are acres per bushel. It's the inverse of yield. We provide the state and national benchmarks as well for comparison. For soil conservation, we show you the tons of soil loss per acre per year. And then you can see the contribution if it's water erosion or wind erosion. In this case, it's all water erosion. And we also show state and national benchmarks. And these come from the National Resources Inventory from USDA. Soil carbon is a qualitative measure. We'll just quickly cover it. It's just an index. You know, the more you get towards the value that you get is between -1 to 1. The higher the value, the higher the likelihood of that crop rotation increasing soil carbon, and you may find it useful at least in a directional way. For another quantitative metric, we have energy use, where it covers BTUs per bushel in this case, since this is soybeans. And then you can see how for this crop year that you ran, how it compares against, again, state and national benchmarks. When you have a project, you can have project-specific averages or benchmarks to compare to, and that will be more relevant. But at least this gives you an idea of the range of information. We divide the energy use into several components. So we have the management energy for all the operations. We have application energy, which takes into account basically upstream energy use for the manufacturing of inputs. If you apply manure, we take into account that energy, the same for seed production. And we have, if it's an irrigated field, it will have energy use for that. The same for post-harvest energy is only crop drying. And then transportation energy is the energy to move the soybeans to the elevator, basically. So this helps you target specific improvements if you care about this. Greenhouse gas emissions is about the same with some other components. So the main score is pounds of CO2 equivalent per bushel of soybean. And again, we have state and national benchmarks. And then we provide the same emissions associated with burning of, energy at the farm. And we also take into account residue burning emissions and N2O emissions. We are not capturing at the moment soil carbon sequestration as part of the energy greenhouse gas emissions metric, but we hope to do so in the future. But it's a very data-intensive process, and we're working towards it. But at this time, we do not provide soil carbon sequestration to offset greenhouse gas emissions, basically. And again, you can see the components, and it seems that for this case, most of the emissions are N2O emissions coming from likely nitrogen fertilizer. And then the other two metrics that we have is water quality. We use the STEP tool from NRCS, and the score is based on the pathways mitigated. Again, this is qualitative, but at least it gives you a directional idea about how to reduce the risk of losing nutrients out of a field. And for biodiversity, we provide an overall score from 0 to 100. And the lower you score, the more opportunities to improve management to increase biodiversity on the farm. Okay, so that covers the demonstration of the actual tool, and we have a few other things that I wanted to show. So we covered this, the Fieldprint Platform demonstration. So that was to enter data as if we were a grower. And then I wanted to show a few screenshots for project management features that you probably care about. So I'm going to show a few slides about the grower view and also about what you as a project administrator would see on a project. So from the grower view, this is what it looks like. So if you can see my mouse, you can see that a grower is free to associate any crop year to an individual project or a separate project. So, for example, the grower may associate the corn grain to a project and the soybeans to a different project, and so on. So the opportunities are limitless. It works very well. It's very seamless. So this is what it looks like for an individual field. So then a grower can see if any of these if any of these crops are going into our project. And then a grower also has a project view. And then here they have the option to opt into any new projects being created. And in this case, this is a demonstration of a grower that they are part of a demonstration project. And if they were, this is of course a fake project, but if there were a lot of growers, a lot of farms, a lot of fields, then the grower would see the size of the cohort participating with the grower in this specific project. So it provides a nice ways for growers to feel that they're part of a system, that there is accountability, that there is benefit to them. And of course, the projects are as good as the organizations implementing it. We provide support, but of course, 99% of the work is up to the implementation partners and the sponsors and the educational partners as well. For a view of project management, what it looks like as a project administrator, I'm going to run through a few. So this is what it looked like, right? So if you have a project, you're a project administrator, you will see the type of project. So this is an inside project. Then you'll see the crops included in this project. You have corn, you have soybeans, you have durum wheat. So this is either in the Dakotas or Arizona. And then you will see the number of farmers, the number of fields, the individual crop years, and the total acres. I'm going to scroll a little, and then this, you have a lot of data reporting features. So you have the project participants, you have ways to manage the information, you see all the project statistics, overviews, the project crop management systems. That's what I was mentioning earlier, that a project can create rotations to make it easier to the growers to improve the data entry. So instead of having something that takes 15 minutes for a grower, it takes a few seconds to select the right crop management system. This will be kind of like a project statistics view. So a project manager can see the year, the crop, you can see the unique growers, fields, and acres, and of course we'll be able to see the volume being produced and so on. So anyway, these are features that we have built over many years of collaboration with the growers all the way to the retailers to see what makes sense for them. The last screenshot that I have for project management features is all the types of reporting. So you can create the second file here. So what we call the comprehensive data output file is very useful. It has all the inputs, all the outputs at the field level, all the metrics. And anyway, you can use that to aggregate the information however you want. If you see down, you can see you can see the shape file, the location of the fields. You can see benchmarks. You can you can create a file to report to the sustainability consortium if you care about that. There are very big retailers that participate in the sustainability consortium, like Walmart, Kroger, Costco. I don't think Target is there, but a few others that will appreciate information, and sometimes they provide incentives. So anyway, it's ways to connect the supply chain. And then you can also create the site platform equivalency for the farm sustainability assessment. So anyway, that's still running and it works really well. And we just updated the latest equivalency for the site platform. The last thing that I wanted to demonstrate is our data analysis tool. So this provides a quick way to analyze project data. So let's say you're a small team, you don't have a statistician in your team, or you don't have somebody that is really, really good with Excel, then we provide you with something that you can get all the information that you may need out of this project. Let me switch screens really quick. And we're going to have to refresh this. It will just take a second. Okay, so this is what it looks like. It's just a website. And if you remember, I was just mentioning the comprehensive data output file. So you can export that and upload it here, basically. And it's just plug and play from there. So we have a video tutorial that you can watch. It's about 10, 15 minutes. But then since we're not going to be analyzing real data, I can load. So you can click here to play with demonstration data. So that loads a file into the system. If you go to the data filter, then you can see the crop years by crop and season. So this is a corn and cotton project. You can see the number of individual field and crops being entered every of this year. And by the way, this is demonstration information. This is not real farmer data, just for privacy concerns. You will see, as a plug and play feature, you can see all the field locations. You can either see the centroids or the boundaries if you care about the actual field boundaries. But at the very least, you can see a snapshot of where the information is. You can check the field names, change the type of map being shown if you care about this. Again, this is not real information. These are random locations. And then you can download the map. Then we have a way for you to explore all the metrics. So for example, let's use the greenhouse gas emissions metric, and this is the score, right? So in this case, it's pounds of CO2 equivalent per bushel of corn or per pound of cotton. And in this case, if you look at the cotton figure, you see that these are outliers, that there was some kind of issue in this data set. So this also allows you to find errors and fix them along the way. We can also check another quantitative metric, the soil conservation metric. And then you can see across the years, if you had any improvement, if any of your interventions did anything, but you can see the tons of soil lost per acre per year over time. And of course, if you had a project that cares about reducing soil erosion, then hopefully you will see a reduction in soil erosion over time. We also let you see all the agricultural inputs. So you have fertilizers, and of course here you can quickly see outliers, right? So you have corn with total pounds of nitrogen that are over 700 pounds. So obviously these are errors, and this is one of the purposes of the tool, that you can quickly see errors and contact those growers or the implementation partner to find ways to fix this. Sometimes it's just a mistype or just an error on the interpretation of the units. So you can check the nitrogen, phosphorus. So this would be P2O5 or K2O applications. The same with the number of herbicides, insecticides, fungicides being applied. The same for lime applications, if any. This project has no lime. And then any nitrogen for manure. And it seems that only there was 2 cotton years with manure applications. We have a view of the crop rotations. And then this is a way to see what kind of rotations growers were doing. So I understand this is extremely data intensive, but this is the data that feeds into the soil erosion models and the soil carbon models. So you can select different rotations and see, that they follow a very logical pattern, right? You plant the corn in early May and harvest it in October. But anyway, you can make rotations as complex as possible, but the rotations measure the intensity of the tillage. And, if you want benefits, to capture the benefits of cover crops, the cover crops will be added to the crop rotation as well. So anyway, this part is very involved, but over time it gets easier. We provide inputs, a summary of inputs for yield and crop and year and the number of fields. You can see fertilizer values, so NPK rates across time. The same with crop protectants. And We can also see the field crop sequence. So let's say for the top field, we see for the years in this project, this was a corn, cotton rotation, basically. And then it's just a measure of information. It will be hard to process so many fields with so many data, but you can also track grower participation, right? So grower ID 303 on the very top, it seems that that grower participated for 8 crop years, so entering 3 fields in 2006 and 2007, and so on. So this is organized in descendant order. So as you go down, then you can see that there are growers that have not engaged except for 1 year. And then, seeing the information in this way allows you to track how growers are engaging and what do you need to improve to increase the grower participation over time. So anyway, you can make this as simple as hard as you want, but we provide other features as well. We let you select the X on Y axis, the colors, to play a little bit with the information if you're interested. But anyway, we call it a sandbox because you can play with the data, see the data in table form, if that's something that you need to see. So anyway, many ways to parse the data. Again, we provide a pivot table creator and a way to search the tables faster. I think that's it for the data analysis tool. Again, if you have somebody that is good with data analysis in your team, then you don't need this. But if you're a small team and you can use all the support you can, then we provide this website to at least plug and play with the information. With this, I'm going to move to a few. Just a second. Let me know if you. Okay. So yeah. Closing thoughts, we try to provide basically an ecosystem. So we're trying to provide a collaborative ecosystem to measure environmental metrics, to take them all the way to the field level, to aggregate them, and to increase the collaboration between the supply chain. So from growers all the way to the retailers, if you care about that, Field to Market provides a very affordable or no cost type of engagement that can help you with some of these goals if you care about these metrics. We're providing some contact information. So for science, research, and technology, you can contact me. We have a membership coordinator. We have partnership coordinators as well to try to improve how we serve our members. And with that, I think we can move to the Q&A. And yeah.
Terrific. Thank you so much, Eric. Before you put your screen down, I'll just take the prerogative and ask the first question, though we have 3 ready and waiting for you, and everybody else can take the time to add their questions. Could you, using the screen, if that's easy, or just verbally try to explain the difference between a user's experience with the free and public version of the tool versus the user's experience as a member? So of those wonderful things that you showed us, which ones will not be, available to just somebody using it publicly?
So the data collection, yeah, it's all the same. We don't have 2 versions of the platform based on if you're a member or not. If you're a grower, let me see if I can put my screen. Yeah, if you're a grower, you can create an account for free and just start entering data. But if you want to start participating in project and so on, and then the organization sponsoring the project, we'll have to join Field to Market to be able to have project management features. But again, for any state NGO, for many NGOs, for state and federal governments, there is no cost to joining Field to Market. But so at the grower level, there is no difference between. I mean, there is no cost to growers, so growers pay nothing to participate. Hopefully that answers the question. Yeah.
Great. Would you like me to read out the Q&A? I'd be happy to do that for you. You could also click on the Q&A button there. Julia Hesse-Fong, and forgive me if I've butchered your name, asks, where do you find the most project partners use the credible claims? For example, ESG reports, websites, certifications.
There is a huge range. For the most part, a lot of big companies like to use information for ESG reporting. Of course, we're always told that they use the data internally a lot, but it doesn't make it to the public, so we don't necessarily know what they're doing in that aspect. But yeah, ESG reporting, emission factors at the supply chain level or for a given region. Sometimes they use information to be able to develop further projects to increase the amount of incentives or interventions to help growers in a given region. So anyway, I think the possibilities are pretty broad.
Cool. And then Martha McKean, Dixon Resource Conservation District, asks two-part question. Is there a cost to be a member, and how do you become a member? So for a resource conservation district, I assume that's like a soil water conservation district, and those are local government entities.
Yeah, so I think for those organizations, there is no cost to join. You just start the process in our website or contact my colleague that works with the membership. So that's the quick way to get started. We'll have to check. So we do have the national organizations being already members of Field to Market. So your organization may already be a member. If you're like a state chapter under a national organization, then I think you're already covered, basically. So yeah, we invite you to check our website. You can see all the members. For example, sometimes we work with a professor and they want to join Field to Market, and we tell them somebody else in your organization decided to join a long time ago, so you're good to go. So yeah, it will be a matter of communicating with our staff and getting the process started. And luckily, maybe you're already a member, so you wouldn't have to spend any time filling out forms and all of that.
Great. Well, let's see. We don't have other questions, but I encourage people to think of some. I just thought of one myself. So if I enjoyed learning and seeing all the various metrics and the ways that the deep dives into each of the metrics, and I love the graphs at the end that you showed. If I wanted to solely focus in on outcomes estimation, the quantification of outcomes, I would be able to, as let's say I'm a project developer and I'm interacting with growers and farmers, I would, interview them, dialogue, or get their data from data sets and input that. And so I would have an individual farmer's analyses, and I would pull out all the 5 different quantitative results. So tons of GHG emissions on a per hectare or acre basis, and the soil carbon tons loss per acre metric. And so I would have that for 5 of those outcomes for that one grower. Does the tool, if I'm a member, help me aggregate that for, let's say, the 32 growers in my project area? Would they be able to add up all of the tons of sediment loss or the tons of GHG emissions, etc.?
Yeah, so right now our analysis helper works at the field level. We are actually building tools currently to support that. So basically, one click to be able to produce all the aggregated outcomes at once. It provides a few already, but we're looking to improve it. But yeah, we provide one or two aggregation tools already, and we're looking to enhance it. But yeah, at the very basics, the reason I'm thinking about it is because we are adjusting the methodology a little bit. But yeah, we already provide 2 types of aggregation for the entire project. In the case you want only one crop or 1 year, the website already supports subsetting an individual year, for example. So yeah, I guess long answer to say yes, we support that, and we're improving it at the moment.
Oh, that was very cool. Thank you. Let's see. Martha said thank you. And Jeanette Marsh of EPA Region 5 says, is the data, reports, etc. downloadable, or is it all held on the web?
No, of course, we want to disseminate information. So all the data, all the inputs, all the outputs, absolutely everything, the field properties, the soil types, the weather, the characteristics, everything you can download as a spreadsheet, basically.
That's great.
Because we want, we want the project admins to have ownership of the data and use it in the way that makes sense. Yeah.
Right. And Martha asks, is that a pointing dot? Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, and something that I wanted to mention too, sorry, because it's relevant, an individual grower also has the ability to download all of their data by field, by year, whatever it may be. They can download all the data for their own purposes as well. So it's not just a project management feature, it's a grower data management as well.
That's great. That's very thoughtful and flexible of the organization. Martha writes, is that a pointing dog on your shirt? To me, it looks like a beagle. Do beagles point?
Oh, yeah, it's a local, it's a local brand in my city. I live in Tifton, Georgia, and it's a local store. And I think they make the shirts somewhere in Alabama. So anyway, I think it's a beagle. It's a hunting dog. Yeah.
It is a hunting dog. Okay, very cool. Martha can spot them. Julia writes again, there's lots of interest recently in biodiversity metrics. Can you tell us more about the biodiversity metric and analysis from this tool?
Yes. So I would say, first, let me say this. The current biodiversity metric, it's an index that asks several questions of farm management, both at the field level and a little bit of edge of field practices. And it has been very limited. So we are currently proposing a revision. It's not public yet, but we're going to go to public comment soon to revise and improve our biodiversity metric to take into account more within field practices, edge of field practices, farm practices that we have identified that support biodiversity. So anyway, if you want to get in touch with me, I'll share more information about that. But yeah, our metric currently is a little bit limited. It's very basic. It was our first biodiversity metric, but we are working to improve it by next year to have a new metric, more comprehensive, that we believe will better meet the needs of members. There is a lot of focus on biodiversity. The challenge for us is that we don't try to just measure a practice, right? For example, let's say you just care about acres of pollinator habitat. That's a practice, but our challenge at Field to Market is transforming that into an outcome. And that's the struggle with biodiversity, because you can care about terrestrial biodiversity, soil biodiversity, aquatic biodiversity, and it has gotten complex, but we are providing a revision, hopefully by next year, that will better serve the needs of members, I believe. I guess the short answer is it's in progress. We do have a biodiversity metric now that gives you points based on, let's say you do reduced tillage, or you have foraging habitat, or you have no tile drainage or cover crops, and some other practices. Then we try to aggregate that to a score. It's very basic, but we're hoping to improve it. Yeah.
Great. Martha of Dixon RCD again says, I'm in Northern California. Are you going to add other crops like tomatoes and orchards?
We have collaborated over the years with organizations such as the Sustainability Index for Specialty Crops. I hope I didn't butcher the name. But yeah, right now we haven't seen members. Yeah, we don't have any member organizations that do produce. So anyway, we don't have any current plans to add specialty crops or produce or orchards, just because we haven't had members requesting it. Yeah, we focus mostly on row crop commodities at the moment.
Mm-hmm. And what about Almond Board of California? Were they active at some point?
So I mean, the Almond Board of California, yeah, they have their own sustainability program, and I think they also participate on the Sustainable Index of Specialty Crops. But yeah, they have never been a member of Field to Market. I think they run their own program. Yeah.
And have you gotten feedback? Do growers enjoy looking at the spidergram, and do they understand it, and they want to do something about it? They want, if they don't like what they see, if they want to improve their environmental footprint, or do they like seeing the quantitative units of outcome for the 5 quantitative? You know, what kind of data do they value more, or do you have a sense?
Yeah, so for the most part, a lot of people like the spidergram. Like I said, it's a mix of art and science, just because of how the algorithms work to produce a radar chart that shows a footprint. But usually, if a grower sees that they're exceeding the benchmarks in the spidergram or the radar chart, whatever you want to call it, then they go look at the quantitative metric to see what's happening. You know, is it the nitrogen? Is the nitrogen too high compared to the benchmark in that region? So that provides some of the incentive to keep looking down. You know, to say, okay, I'm basically maxing out my greenhouse gas emissions metric. What happened? And then they can dig into the quantitative data to see what was the data input that is causing that, basically. But we have seen both. You know, some growers don't care about graph; they just want the numbers, and we support both approaches.
Great. Well, we've run out of some questions. Oh, is there one last one? Let's see. Yes, from Julia, we've got, do most growers find they already have the data prices numbers to input into the tool right away, or do they have to plan to collect their input data for the next year? Great question.
So usually at the field level, depends how big the operation is. If it's a grower family with 5,000 acres, then it make it a little bit complicated. But for the most part, I would say all the growers that I have ever interacted with, they have other software that is already tracking all of these things. So sometimes it's a matter of logging in, pulling out the screen with the NPK values, the pesticide rates, and so on. But we have seen many growers that they just remember the inputs just because they have kept consistent management over the years, or they're just a smaller operation where they remember all the inputs. I would say the variable that we have the most trouble with is the irrigation amount. So we do ask for acre inches of irrigation per acre, and some regions have state or usually a state regulation that says you must have a water meter, and then the grower just knows the water rate. But sometimes growers just, it's maybe they're farming in a region that have never asked for water meters. They do cost money. So sometimes they don't have it. So we provide irrigation water estimator helper where they can answer a few easy questions, and then we provide them at least an estimate of water use for a given region. But yeah, irrigation water use is definitely the trickiest input out there, because not all regions have a tradition of having water meters each sprinkler or pivot. Maybe they have a water meter at the main outlet or the main pump, but that may feed multiple fields, so it's hard to get a number sometimes.
Cool, great. Well, if you have more questions for Eric, he's shared his email, and you know, at least Friday or Monday this week, as we always do, we'll share out the slides and the recordings, and you'll have the ability to ask more questions of Eric later. And we thank you so much. Round of applause for Eric. Here we go virtually. Thank you so much, Eric. We really appreciate it.
And I wanted to say thank you for this opportunity. Hope to hear from anybody interested, and we'll point you in the right direction. Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll turn it over to Aysha for 1 minute wrap up.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for participating in today's webinar. Here are some next steps in our collective outcomes quantification journey. So first, we look forward to you joining us at some or all of the next tools training webinars that will be held on the first Wednesday of every month, except for January, which will be held on the second Wednesday due to the neighboring holiday. If you can't make it to one or more of the webinars, but you want to view the session, the recording should be available by the following Monday. Second, at the end of the webinar, please share your feedback with us by answering that quick 6-question survey I shared at the beginning of the session. It will also appear as a new tab in your internet browser when the webinar ends. Just take a couple minutes to share your feedback so we can keep improving these events. Michelle and I are also offering free coaching services to 6 farm project managers who secure a session with us. These sessions are individually tailored to you in order to help you figure out which tools or methods are right for your project. And if you're interested, just email me, Aysha Tapp Ross, and in the subject line wrote coaching request. And finally, if you'd like a free print copy of the guide to be mailed to you, you can place that order online at the report's website, which you can find easily by using the keywords AFT outcomes tools. I'm sharing my email address as well.
Excellent. You know what? There's a couple of questions. Kind of not processing tomatoes is what I meant. Probably the same answer, said Martha. Thank you. Good. All right. I hate cutting off Q&A, so glad to see that we likely got to them all. Thank you, everybody. This is terrific, Eric. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.